Marisha here, and today I'm going to share three things that are better in the UK than in the US. And don't worry, there will be a follow up video of things that are better in the US, but let's get started. The first thing is environmentalism. The UK is a lot better at taking care of the environment or addressing issues of climate change, for example, than the US is. And I'm going to give two specific examples of things that the average person would notice upon moving here that the UK does, the US doesn't. The first is when you go grocery shopping, you cannot get free bags. You have to bring your own bags with you or you have to pay for bags. Now, this isn't unique to the UK. I know, like, for example, South Korea has been doing this for at least 20 years. Um, but we're comparing UK to US. So, in the US, you can go grocery shopping and there are people who care about the environment and bring their reusable bags. But I feel like those numbers are really astonishingly low. And if you do forget, there's not much jeopardy in forgetting because you get the free plastic bags. And those things are really flimsy and they don't hold a lot of stuff. So you end up having to get a ton of them in one grocery trip. Whereas here, your bags that you purchase, if you forget to bring your own bags, are a lot sturdier and they are designed to be reused then. So you'll pay anywhere between maybe 20 pence to a pound for a reusable bag. Again, these are not like the nice reusable bags like the canvas totes that we think of in the States when we have reusable bags. These are the ones that are they are also plastic, but they are produced at a higher quality so that you are encouraged to then keep bringing them back and reusing them. So I'll show you one that I've been using for over a year now. So Waitrose is one of the grocery store chains here. It's a little bit nicer than some, but not the fanciest one. And you can see it's a pretty decent size. It's got really sturdy handles. Like thicker plastic. It's actually got two layers of plastic, so it feels there's a little bit of insulation. So when I'm buying frozen food in the summer, I wouldn't buy ice cream, but other frozen foods are fine if I take this and I still have to walk like half an hour back to my place. And obviously you can like fold it up, just throw it in my backpack or my purse and have it on me whenever I know I'm going to be going out and getting groceries. So like I said, that's a very sturdy bag. It holds a lot of weight. The handles are great. Haven't had any problems with them breaking or anything like that. Like I said, I've had that bag for at least a year, probably longer. The second thing that you would notice if you came over here is plastic straws do not exist. Um, whether you are buying your own straws at the grocery store or you are at a restaurant, it doesn't matter if it's fast food or a fancy place, or if you're getting juice boxes for your kids' lunch and the little straws that are attached, even those are paper straws. So, no plastic straws. And if you are someone who has seen that video of rescuers having to remove a plastic straw from the nose of a sea turtle, you know the damage that plastic straws can do to the environment. And so having paper straws here is actually really great. I know that some people have problems with the fact that, yeah, obviously they don't last as long in your drink. If you're just going to have a drink and sit there for hours and get free refills on your pop, which is not a thing over here, but I know in the States, sometimes people will do that. Yeah, a paper straw is not going to last for that long. I guess I would recommend not using a straw then. But I really think that if the US could switch to going to paper straws, that would be one step in the right direction. Certainly, there are other things regarding the environment that the UK is doing that the US is not, but these are the two really major things that I noticed as an average person who is not dealing with, corporate law in terms of the environment and things like that. So the second thing is kind of related to that, that's better over here, is public transportation. So obviously we know that public transportation can help with the environment because you have fewer vehicles on the road, but it's not the only reason why public transportation is great. It makes things a lot easier for getting around if you don't have a car, obviously. Um, in the States, we just do not have the structure, like the infrastructure for public transportation the way that it is done in Europe. It is a car centric culture. You pretty much have to have a car to get by, unless you are living in a large city that has a decent public transportation system. But I would say that unless you're in like New York or one of, a few other places that have like a subway system, if you're in a city that's relying mostly on buses, I think most American bus systems are not as efficient and reliable as what we have in London, for example. So in London, you have the tube, but you also have buses and some trains, and it is really easy to get where you need to go within London using public transport. So I don't need a car. It's one reason why it's cheaper for me to live here than it was for me to live in the DC area, because I don't have any of the costs associated with car ownership. Um, it's not the most convenient thing when I'm trying to travel outside of London, and it's not always super cheap, but I could technically travel anywhere that I wanted within the UK using public transportation, and that is just not true in the US. You can't travel every single place in the US using public transport. You have to have a car. So it does make things a lot easier for people who can't drive or who don't want to own a car. And obviously, again, like I said, there are environmental implications as well. The third thing that's better in the UK than the US is TV. Just TV programming is just a lot better. That's not to say they don't have some stinkers and some like really bad reality TV like we do. Um, like they have one that's called oh, what's it called? It's like Naked Attraction, I think, and it comes on after what's called the threshold watershed. There's some term they use for like there's a time period where like, oh, now you can have like uncensored stuff, and it's like basically you choose whether you're going to date somebody based on how they look naked. Like it reveal like it's like people who are lined up and they're naked, and it reveals them like from the feet to the knees, and the person who is choosing has to eliminate someone based on that, and then it reveals them like up to the chest or something, and then they eliminate someone. So like you see their face last. So like, there's they do have bad stuff that's like okay, like dating shows and stuff, the way that we do in the States. But I think in general, when you look at the programming as a whole, UK has way better stuff. They have something called panel shows, which we don't really do in the States. I know there have been attempts to remake some like American versions of UK panel shows that haven't really taken off. The most recent one is they have attempted to remake Have I Got News for You in the US, and I believe it is hosted by Roy Woods. And like it's okay, but it's not the same caliber as the UK versions of shows. So panel shows, basically what they are is you'll have comedians on the show, and depending on what the premise of the show is, they are playing a game or talking about the news or whatever it is that they're up to. But it's really a way for comedians to sort of like play off of each other. And I think it's maybe a cultural thing that it doesn't really work in the States because the attitude toward comedy tends to be a lot more um, kind of individualized and less cooperative, I guess. I think that's one explanation. But panel shows are really great. And so if you're interested, some panel shows that I really enjoyed, and I discovered them in the States. You can find them on YouTube or at least find clips, if not full episodes. QI is a really good one. It's my favorite. Scott Allen Davis. Would I Lie to You is a really good one. That was one that they tried to make in the States and it just didn't work. Um, and then Cats Does Countdown, which is a blending of a panel show called 8 out of 10 Cats and a game show that is like a normal game show for normal people called Countdown. And then they combined them to make a celebrity panel show called 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. It's another fun one. So panel shows, something that doesn't even exist in the States, but even talking about genres that do exist, my favorite, or one of my favorites anyway, is mysteries. And so, British mysteries, there's just so many more of them and they're a lot better. Um, Not that there haven't been good mysteries in the US, but just by sheer number, when you're comparing, the UK is better. Not just in terms of they have more, but like the ones that they have are all good. You got your Midsummer Murders, you've got all of the versions of Agatha Christie stuff. So there's different Miss Marples and Poirots. Um, just so many. Jonathan Creek is an older one that you might be familiar with in the States. I think they showed it on PBS. And that's the thing is, um, if you're going to be watching those shows, you're going to be watching them on PBS, unless you can get BritBox or Acorn. But that leads me to another aspect of why it's kind of better in the UK, and that is, unless you're watching like cable, I think I don't actually have TV in my apartment here, so but if you're just sticking to like BBC channels and they have multiple channels, there's no commercials. So you pay a TV licensing fee, and that goes to pay for what it takes to run the BBC. And so it's like PBS, except that there's multiple channels and they make like all of their own content. So PBS makes some of its own content, usually like nature programs and things like that. But if you're watching mysteries or dramas on PBS, that's all stuff that's imported from the UK. Whereas obviously in the UK, when you're watching stuff on the BBC, that's all homegrown, material that they've created themselves. So again, a lot more access to commercial free programming. Like I said, multiple BBC channels and a wide variety of content that is created for those channels without having to import the way that PBS does. So those are the three, not the only three, but three things. And I tried to keep it lighthearted, so I didn't touch on things like healthcare or gun control, for example, um, that are better in the UK than the US. And like I said, there will be a follow up of things that are better in the US than the UK. Try to keep things balanced, and acknowledge that obviously both countries have their strengths and their weaknesses. Like, subscribe, tell your friends how gnarly this channel is, and I'll see you next time.